Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Mid-Tier Thoughts. Today we're talking about something that whether you're a modern-day Minuteman, a prepper, just a gun enthusiast, or anyone who frankly just enjoys firearms, something that I think everyone across those categories could agree that this is something that you should have. And that is 22s. Today we're talking about 22s in both rifle and pistol configurations, some opinions that I have on what's out there, and my top recommendations for getting a 22 and the use cases therein. So stick around and let's talk about it. So the nice thing about 22s that's pretty obvious is that they are dirt cheap. Usually the rifles themselves, the pistols themselves, and the ammunition themselves are all relatively inexpensive. Same thing with magazines, really regardless of the platform, whether it be a rifle, a pistol, an AR rifle style or pistol or anything like that, they're generally pretty inexpensive, starting out at the entry level, and they can be really inexpensive to feed with both magazines and ammunitions. You can get a ton of different accessories for them if you're someone who doesn't want to blow a ton of money because it is just a 22. You don't necessarily have to go super name brand for accessories. You can throw a cheap red dot on here that's maybe wouldn't work so well on a more recoil sensitive rifle because again, it's just a 22. It's not going to have a ton of recoil. They're great options to get into. Now you can spend a ridiculous amount of money on 22. You can get some quartz and stuff. You can customize these things. That's the other thing is like these things are incredibly customizable across the board and all the different ones we're going to be looking at. And you can go pretty far down the rabbit hole into tricking these things out, or you can leave them stock and use them as a great thing for hunting small game, for teaching others how to shoot, even in pinch, personal defense. So there's a ton of different options. We're going to go through them all that I have for you. I have 5 22s that I think are great recommendations for anyone who doesn't have one already to go out and get, and why. We're going to start off simple with the Smith & Wesson Victory 22. So this is a great option for a 22 caliber pistol. It has a 10 round magazine capacity. You do have the option up here to have a pick rail. Mine happens to have that I've put on there. I do intend to put a red dot on there. Haven't got around to getting one yet. You also have a fiber optic front sight. Now standard, these do just come with fiber optic rear sights as well. They pick up the sunlight very well. They have a 10 round magazine capacity. There's tons of companies out there where you can customize this. You can get threaded barrels for them. Mine happens to be unthreaded. I do intend on switching that. I do want to get this thing suppressor ready. So you can trick these things out. There's a lot of companies out there. You can spend a lot of crazy money getting something like this done. But another good option for 22 caliber pistol, something like this, if you're a Glock fan, the Glock 44, there's the Torex TX22. There's a bunch of different options out there for reliable 22 caliber pistols these days. Even like the SIG P322, things like that. You can get a lot of different options out there as training pistols and great ways to teach people to shoot. I actually use this to help teach my wife how to be a better pistol shooter. Whenever she was actually learning how to shoot on her P365, she shot this for a little bit, transferred over to the P365, brought a lot of fundamentals over. This thing, due to its weight and its overall size, had very minimal recoil. 22 generally tends to have almost no recoil to begin with, but incredibly light recoil. It's an inexpensive gun, 10 rounds in a magazine, usually comes with 2 mags. And again, you can trick these out. So this is a great option. And 22 caliber pistols in general are a pretty good option to have. From a Minuteman standpoint, if you need to take something out very quietly and discreetly, whether it be a 4-legged thing or a 2-legged thing, this can do the job. There's plenty of recorded historical uses of that doing it. So that is another option for you to think about as well. Now, not everything needs to be tactical, practical, or fancy new age stuff. This here is the Sears and Roebuck version. It's J.C. Higgins. It's basically a Marlin Model 60. It's just a J.C. Higgins version. Now, this was actually handed down to me by my grandfather, and it was given to him by his father, who bought it out of a Sears and Roebuck catalog. For reference, my grandfather was born in the 1930s, so this thing has seen some stuff. It has been around forever. And basically, every kid in my family, all my cousins, myself included, many of my aunts and uncles and my mother, all learned how to shoot with this rifle. This is a 22 caliber. It is tube fed, old school tube fed. So you uncork this here, pull it out, drop your rounds in one at a time till you fill it up. Holds about 10 rounds. And you can go to town. You got your safety over here. It's just a quick little lever that goes forward and backwards. It is a nice, simple 22. Now something like this, right? It's not the most practical firearm. It's not threaded. It's not really that easy to mount stuff on here. I'm pretty sure they do have scopes for these, but it's not like I have those just floating around. This is an older design, but something like this is useful for teaching people how to shoot. You could use this again for hunting small game, for target shooting. A lot of manipulations and a lot of fundamentals can be learned from a weapon like this, where you can appreciate kind of how far we've come. you can appreciate how far we've come in technology, but you can also appreciate this for what it is. Also, there is something to be said about having an heirloom rifle, something that's been in the family, passed down, touched by so many different people, and now in your possession and carrying on the tradition of shooting. Now, I know what you're thinking. Awesome, this old piece of wooden iron, like I'm not going to go do anything practical tackle with that. I get that. This serves a different role. To me, this serves the role of preserving history and teaching. I have used this to teach my children how to shoot. I have had my son shoot this. And there's something cool about seeing your child learn to shoot on the same gun that you learned to shoot on, that your mother learned to shoot on, that your grandfather learned to shoot on, and that history that's preserved through there. So preserving that history, passing down that passion and the love of firearms and preservation and preparedness, that's where this kind of sticks out to me, is more of a behind the scenes kind of role. Not something you're going to grab and go fight off the redcoats with, but something that is practical in another sense, something that preserves that history. Because the thing is, no matter how much of a tactical Timmy you are, or how much of a badass you think you are, and all this stuff that you have, and all the gear and everything, if you don't pass that on to the next generation, that willingness to be a prepared citizen, that willingness to appreciate what you have and to protect it, then it's all for naught. Because it'll last your lifetime, but if the next generation doesn't pick up the mantle, then what did it matter? What did you really accomplish? So that's something to think about too. Now, this next gun, whether you're a prepper, whether you're a prepared citizen, modern-day Minuteman, just someone who enjoys firearms, period, I'm a firm believer every American household should have a Ruger 1022. This one happens to be a breakdown model. I would take it down, but I'm not 100% sure how YouTube feels about that, so we're not going to. With that being said, just imagine that where my finger is, this front half of the barrel comes off, and you can have split the gun into two, easily put it back together. So the Ruger 1022 is like the quintessential 22 caliber rifle. When I said we're talking about 22s, most of you probably imagined something like this. Now, the benefit of these things is they're incredibly customizable. You can customize the crap out of this. Now, this is mainly stock. I've just got a Bushnell Sport View scope that I have on here. Funny thing about this, actually, I was at my local thrift store, and they had this for like $10. This is an old Bushnell Sport View scope. It's actually one of their range finding scopes. I'm going to do a video on something like that, kind of show how far we've come in scope technology. But it's an interesting little scope and a pretty cool little deal. But threw it on here. It's great for rimfire. It's a little 3 to 9, which you'll see later on in the video, I think is a really good option for most rimfires, is a 3 to 9 scope for the magnification that it offers. But a Ruger 1022, we're probably all super familiar with these. It's kind of the ubiquitous firearm when we think of 22s. They take 25 round magazines. They can take 5, 10, 15, 25 round magazines. There are some that are 2 25 rounders put together. They have drums for these. They have all kinds of aftermarket kits. You can get these. You can take the guts out of this, throw it into a kit, turn it into an AR version, an AK version, a G36 version. I've seen like fantasy rifle and like video game rifle versions. There's bullpup versions. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with this. These rifles themselves, stock rifles, are incredibly affordable. They're dirt cheap. You can go buy a brick of 22 and a rifle and be out the door for under $250. I mean, you can go out and have a blast with something like this. And they're great for shooting. The iron sights on here are great. They generally almost always come with some sort of rail that you can install to either put on a red dot or put on a scope of your choice. Incredibly accurate. You can get different barrels for them, and you can suppress them. You can do all kinds of different things. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because the Ruger 1022 is pretty familiar to all of us. If it's not, welcome to YouTube. You can search up a ton of videos. So, Ruger 1022. Well, if you do want to be more precision-minded out of the gate, well, the 1022 is an option that you could modify to get to that point. This is a really great option to start out with. It's pretty affordable. It's under the $500 mark. At least they were whenever I picked them up. This is the Springfield 2020 rimfire. There's different variations of this out there. So I've got just a cheap bipod on here, a 3 to 9 by Primary Arms. And this is kind of what my son graduated to after shooting on the knockoff Marlin, the J.C. Higgins rifle. This year's Roebuck that I showed earlier. So this is threaded. You can mount a suppressor on here. If you do, I don't have a 22 caliber suppressor, unfortunately, so I haven't gotten around to do that. That's on the wish list. This, though, is a great option for shooting precision 22s. Speaking of precision 22s, if you have a 308, a 6.5, something that's like a long distance rifle that you really want to kind of reach out and touch something with, and you want to get to those courses, you want to get to those classes, you want to do PRS shooting, it can be a pretty big learning curve in the beginning. It can cost you a lot of money and ammunition, which I'm not discouraging from you, by the way. But I'm just saying, if you want to get into that, if you have something like this, or you want to pick up something like this is a great training aid for something like that. Now, Not only can you learn how to be accurate and precise, take your time, and to use your scope and kind of learn the ins and outs of a rifle, but something like this is really awesome for precision rifle shooting in 22. There are actual competitions all over the country that are 22 caliber precision rifle matches where they generally take a 22 and they push it out anywhere from 250 to 400 yards, which is pretty impressive. If you think about it, most people are probably shooting a 22 within 50 yards and definitely within 100 for sure. So pushing this out, anything past that is actually pretty impressive if you think about it, especially if you're actually hitting what you're aiming at. So you can learn a lot about bullet drop. You can learn a lot about windage and elevation and how to adjust for different environmental factors, how to adjust for drop and different things like this, because bullets travel along an arc. And if you're going to go and shoot like a 308 or a 6.5 or something in that nature, and you're really going to push out and try to get those 1,000-yard plus competitions, shooting precision rifle 22 matches can be a great way to get a lot of the fundamentals, the skill, and practice down with that on how to adjust to make up your following shots without having to spend a ton of money. You can go buy a brick of 22 and not spend a whole bunch of money. Go spend 500 rounds at the range, really honing that in at distance and learning what you need to work on and learning where you're good at, where you're not, what skills you need to build, things like this, and do it on the cheap. So it's a great way to do that. Plus, it's just fun. There's something pretty cool about being able to just repeatedly hit those targets again and again and again, even if it is bolt action. It's a really great option. And I think that this is a great training aid for someone who wants to get into something like that. And if you want to use this to hunt small game, something like that, it's totally possible, depending upon where you are, what you're going after, what your laws are for hunting and things like that. So this is a really good option as well for a precision-minded 22 caliber rifle. And our last one is probably the most fun. Now you could have a dedicated 22 caliber AR-15 or whatever tactical rifle of your choice that comes to 22. They've got a 22 caliber Scorpion, a 22 caliber G36, things like this. But let's say you have an AR-15, you want to get like an M&P-15 22 or different brands, Tippmann makes one. Those are really good options as well that you could go with as a dedicated 22 caliber rifle. But let's say you're trying to save a little bit of money, or you don't want to necessarily have an entirely dedicated rifle that now you have to outfit to be exactly like your rifle that you're using for, SHTF, and you want to have something similar. This is the CMMG 22 caliber conversion bolt. So basically, your standard AR, I can't show it because YouTube will slap me for it, so we're going to do this off camera. But basically, this on the front end here, but basically this slides into your chamber and is a replacement bolt. It looks like a 5.56 casing here, and it just pops in like this, and you're able to convert your AR-15 over to a 22 caliber rifle. And just like that, I've converted my rifle into a 22 caliber semi-automatic AR-15. So the magazines for these are from CMMG. They are 25 rounders. I've tried with MP-15 22 mags. They don't necessarily really work. I'm not 100% if that's just my case or what. I have heard that they do, so you'll try that out at your own risk. But you'll notice here, the bolt doesn't actuate all the way. It doesn't necessarily need to because it's not going as far because it's a much smaller cartridge. So with this, I have utilized this for thousands of rounds. I mean, realistically, I've probably put close to, anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 rounds through this thing because I shoot it all the freaking time. Now, this does have a suppressor on here. I've got my Yankee Hill Turbo K on the end of this. This is my Daniel Defense DDM4 V7. And the crazy thing about this is it is really quiet. Now, when it comes to 22 ammunition, I'm not a big strickler when it comes to, what's what. So I usually just grab it all, throw it in a 30 cal can, and then grab a handful out, load it in a magazine. So there is a bit of a sound difference whenever it's coming out of the end here based on different grain weights and speeds and everything like that. So kind of a fun experience with that for sure. But this thing can be super quiet. You can have a lot of fun with something like this. And the only sound you're hearing is the actuation of the action as well as the round hitting, the steel or whatever it is that you might be shooting at. So you can practice all your skills, all your fundamentals. You can have somewhat limited accuracy, obviously, because you're not shooting out to massive distance like you were before. This is really good for shooting paper, steel, things like that, running courses on the cheap. And with 22, as with anything, you are likely to kind of run into malfunctions of the round. itself. Just 22 is not always the most reliable round, which is why we always say it's useful for personal defense in a pinch. It's not preferred because of the lack of reliability in the cartridge itself. So because of that, you will get some function drills in, but you're going to get a lot of manipulation, a lot of drills, a lot of rounds down range. And again, go out and buy a brick of 22 for like 30 bucks and shoot all day long. You can shoot 500 rounds all day long. 500 rounds, 25 rounds at a time. I mean, like, think about that. You can get a lot of practice in. You get yourself a couple of mags, do some transitions. You can have a lot of fun and a lot of practical use out of something like that. So with all of these different options, and again, there's many, many more out there. I'm sure if you have a favorite 22, comment it down in the comments. Tell me what I missed, what kind of favorite 22s you have that are out there, something that maybe I didn't think about. What's your luck been with conversion kits or 22 caliber versions of your favorite rifles? My experience with a lot of this is just going out to the range, having a lot of fun with this, trying to train on the cheap. I'm not a rich person. I do not have a ton of money. YouTube is not rolling in the dough yet. So I have to find affordable ways to be able to go out and train and practice and teach without having to break the bank. And 22 is a great way to do that. With that, guys, you guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for staying with us. Tell me what you thought of these top 5, and if there's anything that I missed, go ahead and check out www.midtierthoughts.com. Check out the awesome merch that we have there. Anything that you pick up on there helps support the channel, helps us get more stuff to be able to talk about, and more things and more range time to be able to experience stuff for you, to tell you what our thoughts are on there when it comes to the Minuteman space. Speaking of the Minuteman space, check out Rebel Spirit Combative Training Applications.com. Long name, great place. It's a community of all of your favorite YouTubers in the modern Minuteman space. We're all in one location. You can find all of our videos, podcasts, notes, tips, training guides, different articles on gear and kit, anything your heart desires, you can find it on there. So go check it out. Again, Rebel Spirit Combative Training Applications.com. Peace, guys. We will catch you on the next one.